Guys, please confirm to me. All of you are getting my voice on screen. Those are attending in online. Please check it, guys. All of you are getting my voice on screen. Guys, please confirm to me. All of you are getting my voice on screen. Those are attending in online. All right. All right, sir. And check it what we completed in the last session. Right. I think so. We are discussing about Spring beans. That means beans in a Spring framework. The total topic here we have started there. Now IOC containers topic here we are discussing there. In IOC containers, already we completed bean factory. Then we started with what their application context. In that application context also be one example we have seen. Same example. Whatever the example we have seen there in bean factory, the same example we have done with what their application context. Application context internal flow also be here we are given for this application context content here. Then after that, here we started with what there, one important interview question there. What was that question here we started there? What are the differences between bean factory and application context containers? What exactly the differences are available between these two now? Right, the very first difference already we understood. The last class I given number of differences there, but one of the difference here already we understood there. Then first one is like what there? What is the first point? Here we are understanding there. Bean factory is a base container in a Spring framework. It is a base container in a Spring framework. It is able to provide. It is able to provide basic functionalities. Basic functionalities in Spring applications. Basic functionalities like creating bean objects and maintaining bean objects, or manage bean object, creating bean objects and manage bean objects. That's it. Up to that only that bean factory is responsible. Next one is whereas application context is what the number of times are given this point here. Application context is a child to bean factory. Application context container is a child to bean factory container. Child to bean factory container. There what it able to do actually, it is providing some advanced features. It is able to provide some advanced features like number of times I said to you, internationalization, event handling, data validations, and so on. So many, along with all the functionalities which are performed by, which are provided by bean factory. What bean factory is providing, all of them are provided by application context and some extra. I said to you yesterday, what is the main benefit of the inheritance? The main benefit of the inheritance is what their code reusability. In general, we thought that, but along with that code reusability, another advantage we are able to get. What is that another advantage here we are able to get now? The child can have more capabilities when compared with what their parent. Whatever the capabilities are available for parent, no, the same capabilities are available at child, and extra we are able to have what there some extra capabilities. Not only that, if any one or two behaviors of the parent is not not interested by the child, no, then child can override that parent behaviors. So this much of control is available for child classes now. So that is because of only inheritance. That is the beauty of inheritance actually. In object orientation, that is the beauty of the inheritance. Either we can override the parent functionalities which it doesn't like by child, or it can have some extra functionalities. Both are possible there whenever we have taken the child for a particular parent. So the same thing here, we have proven that application context is a child for bean factory. Automatically bean factory capabilities are coming to the application context and some extra capabilities. What are that extra capabilities? No, some advanced features here we implemented. Right, sir. This is the point here we can understand. Next, the second point here, what I am telling to you, observe carefully. Second point. The second one is like what there, bean factory is an outdated container in a Spring framework. Outdated container in a Spring framework. Its implementation class. What is the implementation class for bean factory? Come on, what is the implementation class for bean factory? XML bean factory is deprecated from Spring 3.x version onwards. Is deprecated from Spring 3.x version onwards. All right, sir. But whereas application context container is not outdated container, its implementation classes are not deprecated. Its implementation classes are not deprecated. That's it. Tell me, guys, all of you know. Tell me, all of you know, how many implementation classes are available for application context? 3 implementation classes are available. I think you forgot about these points now. Sir, one thing I'm telling there, I understood your situation. Same set of students are attending Servlets and Spring. Servlets are somewhat more attractive than Spring. I know that at this stage. But when we are moving towards the actual content, no, Spring is more attraction. But anyway, one thing is more attractive, another one is not much attractive. That is not the problem from my side. There is a problem of what the technologies. The technologies are available like that. So I understood that we are more focused on Servlet first application development. So we are neglecting the Spring framework. 3 days back, if I observe there, people are more interested in Spring application, not interested in Servlets. Last 2 days onwards, people mindset is changed. They are working more, they are putting more focus on Servlets, not on Spring. Don't go for that. Try to divide your time into the 2 parts. One is for Servlet, another one is for what? Spring. Both are important. Both are required. Sir, Allah for getting it what I'm telling there. I understood your view. Your attention also, we understood that. So both are important. Don't think about it somewhat right. No. See, this is the very, very famous interview question. In every spring interviews, this question will come. If you have any doubt on it, no, go to that YouTube where search for videos like what there. 3 to 4 years of experience in interviews on Spring is a keyword. Try to search like that. You'll get so many interviews there on Spring. There we can identify this. There we can identify this question there. Even that questions that people are giving answers with only 1 or 2 differences only. But we are planning for more and more number of differences now. So put concentration over this points, Ken. Now tell me, already I given one diagram in the last session. Whether you remembered it or not, I don't know. But overall, I given that final diagram for it. Where I given that final diagram here, whenever I started this containers topic there I given one diagram. Yesterday only I prepared this diagram and I pasted that in the respective location. Check this diagram here. IOC containers. First one is what there, bean factory. Bean factory is having 2 childs. One is what there, XML bean factory is an implementation class. Other one is what there, child interface now. What is the child interface there? Application context. Application context has how many? Application context how many? All right, sir. Now the first one is what there? Class path XML application context. Second one is what there? File system XML application context. Last one is what there? Web XML application context. Already I shown programming pros for what there? Class path XML application context. Second one is what there? File system XML application context. But I didn't show any example on web XML application context. Do you know what is the reason for it? Why I'm not showing any example on web XML application context? Do you think about it? I'm missing the topic. Nothing. In online there is a question. Yesterday also be 2 times that question. Today also be 1 question. One more time. All right. He asked that question there continuously. Right here. Then that is not possible now. Why it is not possible now? The point is watch. Web XML application context. If you want to use, I must go with the web application development in Spring framework. Web application development. If you want to do with the Spring framework, no, I must discuss about the Spring web module. In a Spring web module only, we are able to understand that web XML application context. I given even this point here in the description. Web application, web XML application context will be used in a Spring web module, not now. Understand it clearly. So because of that reason, we are unable to discuss the topic here. That's why I'm not giving any example for it. Clear or not? So I'm not missing the topic. Definitely I will cover the topic, but I'm waiting for the right time. In the right time, we are going to discuss about the content here now. Try to understand this clearly. Fine, sir. That's okay, fine. They are the content. At least from here we can understand XML bean fact is a parent and application context is a child. It has only one implementation class, but here it has what there? So many implementation classes. No, so definitely we are able to have some differences here now, right? This diagram here we have to remember. At least if we draw this diagram to that interware can maybe understand whatever the how much knowledge you are having on this content. Okay, if we draw this diagram to that interware, there is a scope to ask one question by that interware. What is that question there? Tell me the difference between class path XML application context, file system XML application context. Have you understood the difference? Yesterday I given more clearly. Tell me what is the difference now? One use case I given there. Even I shown practically that one. The point is what? Class path XML application context. In the case of this, our Spring configuration file must be available in the class path environment variable. That is under like what there, SRC folder or maybe resources folder. SRC folder or resources folder in the sense that is inside the application. That is inside the application. But what about this file system XML application context? The file system application context in the sense the respective Spring configuration file must be available in our system hard disk. It may be under our application or it may be in outside of the application. In outside of the application, maybe E drive or F drive, wherever it may be, there also we can provide. Already shown that Spring config.xml I kept in E:/ABC. The total path I given to like what there, like application context. That means like what there XML file system XML application context there I've given. So we are getting the total content here. Got it or not? So this type of points here we have to remember anyway. That's okay, fine. Let's move on to the points here. The next one here, what I am telling there. Next point is what there. Application context container is not an outdated container. Its implementation classes are not deprecated. But bean factor is an outdated container in Spring framework. Its implementation class XML bean factor is deprecated from Spring 3.x version onwards. This is the second point here, what we understood there. All right, so point number 3. Observe carefully. Point number 3. Bean factory container is not supporting. Bean factory container is not supporting AOP programming in a Spring framework. Come again. What's the point I said to you? AOP programming in a Spring framework. AOP programming, that means aspect oriented programming. Aspect orientation is not supported by Bean factory in Spring framework. In order to integrate the services like what services here? Transactions maybe, transaction services maybe, security maybe, and so on. So many services are available. through AOP only we are going to integrate these services with our Spring application. But unfortunately, Bean Factory is not giving support for AOP in order to integrate these services. AOP programming is not possible with what there? Bean Factory. Get my point or not? So again, I'm telling there, Spring application is available, enterprise application is available. In this enterprise application, if you want to provide exception handling, transaction, or security, this kind of services to our enterprise application there Bean Factory is not providing that AOP support, so Bean Factory is not possible to integrate this kind of services to our application. But what is possible, what is required here, who is providing that services there? If you observe this point now, application context is providing that support for what there? AOP programming in order to integrate these many content clearly. Right, sir. Now the same point here I want to provide there. Now try to understand this clearly. Right, now get the point like what I'm telling you. In place of this Bean Factory, and it will be specified like what there? Application context container is supporting application context container is supporting AOP programming in a Spring framework in order to integrate the services like what there? Transaction security and so on. This is another point here we have to understand. Let's see point number 4. All right, sir. All of you observe carefully. Bean Factory container is not supporting web application development by using Spring Web module, Spring Web and Web MVC, Web and Spring Web MVC modules. Bean Factory is not supporting for what their web module. But whereas application context container is supporting web application development by using the Spring provided modules like web module and web MVC module, like web module and web MVC module. Both are not supported by Spring Bean Factory. Both are supported by like what their application context. Everybody understand this clearly. Right, so next one after that. 5th point. See, in the case of Spring framework, Bean objects are created by the container. For each and every Bean object, some scopes are available. For each and every Bean object, some scopes are available. What scopes are available for each and every Bean object? No, request scope is available. Okay, next one is a singleton scope is available, prototype scope is available, session scope is available. Like this, different scopes are available now. Answer my point, Ken. Singleton scope in the sense, singleton object will be generated. What's the meaning of singleton object? No, one object per class. Prototype scope in the sense, not a singleton, any number of objects here we can create for a particular class. Or request scope, for every request object in a servlets, in a web application, separate object will be created. Session scope, for every session object, a separate Bean object will be created. Right, and some global session scope, global session, for each and every global session, a separate object will be created. Like these, scopes are available for the Bean components. Of course, this is again an official topic for us, Bean scopes. In the Beans content, we are able to say. But here the point is like what there? What's the point I'm telling there? Bean Factory container is able to support only Bean Factory container is able to support only singleton scope and prototype scope for the Bean components, for the Bean objects. So Bean Factory container is able to support Bean scopes only singleton and prototype. Singleton and prototype. But whereas application context is able to support all the types of scopes for the bean objects. Like what there, singleton scope. Then after this singleton scope, what next one here? Prototype scope. Don't worry, you'll see practically these scopes there. In the future, we have a separate topic for it. Prototype scope. Then after that, request scope, session scope, global session scope, global session, and so on. If anything is remaining, that I've given there clearly. By seeing all these points here, we can give one conclusion. What is this conclusion here? We are able to provide there. Observe carefully. Bean factory is suitable for standalone applications. Am I right or not? Bean factory is suitable for what applications there? Standalone applications. But whereas application context is suitable for all the types of applications. Application context is suitable for all the types of applications. Sir, all of you get my point or not? All right, sir. Application context is suitable for all the types of applications, whereas bin factory is suitable for standalone applications. Clear? All of you are getting clarity on this? And one more point here. Here, I need to give one more point here. Now, again, this is actually the fifth point. What's the point I'm telling there? Bin factory is not supporting the Spring modules like Spring ORM, Spring transactions, and so on. Bin factory is not supporting what there, Spring ORM and Spring transactions, this type of modules, not possible here. Got it or not? But whereas application context is able to support for the modules like Spring transactions, Spring ORM, and so on. Transactions, in the sense, transaction support is required. So definitely application context only there we are able to use. Support modules like Spring transactions, Spring ORM, right, like this. Here we are getting it. Right, so these are overall the points here we have to understand. Now this will be like what there, sixth step. Now this is like what there, seventh point here. Sir, got it or not? So these are exactly the points here we can understand. If you want to give one more point here about this eighth point here, anyway, already you know about it. Just once again, I'm writing this one. Bin factory container has only one implementation class. That is what there, XML bin factory. Next one is application context. Container has three implementation classes. Alright, so three implementation classes. Like what there? What are the three implementation classes now? Class path, XML, application context. Next one is what? Next one here after completion of this, file system, XML, application context. Then after that, what next one here? No, web, XML, application context. All right, sir. So these are the implementation classes point of view here what we are having now. Got it or not? So these are the differences and the total bin factory and application context differences are provided here now. Tell me guys, this is very, very important interview question. Everybody must remember this. Tell me, I'm asking this question to you. What are the differences between bin factory and application context? What we understood there now, tell me. Very first point is what there? Bean factory is what there is a base container which provides, which supports their basic fundamental elements to support on, that is creating bean objects and maintaining bean objects. But whereas application context is a child for what their bean factory, which supports some advanced features when compared with what their bean factory. Point number one. Point number two, bean factory is an outdated container. Its implementation class XML bean factory is deprecated from Spring 3.x version onwards. But application context is not outdated container. Its implementation class are not deprecated in any of the Spring version. Point number three, which modules are supported by Bean Factory and which modules are not supported by Bean Factory? Bean Factory may be supporting up to basic core module only. Even in core module also, creating Bean objects and maintaining Bean objects, up to that only it is supporting there, but it is not supporting remaining modules. But application context is supporting all modules. Like what modules there? No, web module, web MVC module, ORM module, transactions module, JDBC module, all. Right, sir. Even 2 to 3 points I covered in this single statement now. Next one is what there. After completion of this, Bean factor is suitable for which type of applications? No, standalone application. Whereas application context is suitable for which type of applications? No, all the types of applications, even including standalone applications and what next one? Web applications and distributed applications, database related applications clearly. Got it or not? Then Bean Factory has only one implementation class. That is what their XML Bean Factory. But application context contains how many implementations there? No, 3 implementations are available. What are the 3 implementations there? No, right, sir. Class path XML application context. Next one is a file system XML application context. Then what next one? Web XML application context. Leave these points. Next one is after that. And one more point we missed it here. Which scopes are supported by Bean Factory and which scopes are supported by application context? Now tell me here. Bean Factory is supporting only 2 types of scopes for the beans. What are the 2 types of scopes now? Singleton and prototype. Singleton and prototype. But application context is able to support which type of scopes now? Maybe singleton, prototype, request scope, session scope, global session scope. Right, sir. These are the various points here. Right, anyway, now leave these points here. Next one is the next topic. After completion of these IOC containers in a Spring, the next one is like what they beans in a Spring framework. Previously in the steps to prepare application, we understood beans now. That is only 1% of the topic here we understood that. But more concepts here we are going to understand. Now check it now where we have used that beans in a Spring framework topic there. Right, sir. Steps to prepare application. IOC container, right, sir. I give in some of the points here. No need to repeat these points here. Already we had information about all the points here. Now let us check this where we provided here. Right, sir. Create container. Spring configuration. Now here we are getting it. Right, sir. Now here, first of all, here we have to understand beans. This total part I required now. Right, sir. Up to this, I require the content here. Just I'm copying this for the sake of your document purpose. I'm going to paste that at a particular location. At what location here? Now here, initial context here I want to provide. Okay, now say this. Directly, I'm providing this total data. Let's see what exactly the data here I provided here. Already discussed it here. That's why I'm giving total content as test. Now let us see one more time here. Bean is a reusable software component. It is able to manage the state of a particular entity. State of the entity in the sense what their data of a particular object. Data is nothing but what their state. Employee, if you take Bean, no, employee object will have some data. Employee ID or maybe employee name, employee salary, and employee address, like this some data is available that we are going to maintain. That data is called as what their state of the object that will be managed by bean objects. Next one is bean classes will be used in different frameworks in a different ways. What are the different ways of utilizing these beans in different frameworks? No, in a struts we may call it as what their action forms. In a JSF, backing beans. In a Hibernate, entities are posers. In a Spring, beans are posers. EJB, session beans and entity beans like this. Okay, of course, message driven beans also. That is another one, not required. All right, sir. Now observe carefully. Poso class. What is the meaning of this Poso class actually? In a Hibernate and Springs, we are using what there? Poso only. What's the meaning of this Poso? No, Poso is a plain old Java object. These are beans which must not extend or implement predefined library except one interface. What is that interface there? Java.io.serializable interface. If you want to use Java beans in Java applications, if you want to use beans in Java applications, Spring applications, we have to use the following rules and regulations. What are these rules and regulations here we are having there? All right, so first one, every bean class must be declared with a public, non-abstract and a non-final. Public, non-abstract and a non-final. Right, where the main purpose to declare bean class as public is to make available the scope of the bean class to the containers in order to create objects. Containers frameworks in order to create objects. Where the main purpose to declare a bean class as non-abstract is to allow frameworks or containers to create objects. For abstract classes, we are unable to create objects. Non-abstract in the sense possible to create objects. Where the main purpose to declare a bean class as a non-final is to allow extending a bean class to another bean class in order to reuse one bean class behaviors in another bean class. All right, sir. Now the point number 2. Second one here we are going to understand there. In bean class, we must provide a separate set set xxx method and get xxx method for every property. Yeah, it is required here. Next one is after that. In bean class, declare all properties as private and all methods as what they're public. This is mandatory. This is a rule. As for the beans, this is a rule. All right, sir. In bean class, declare all properties as private and declare all methods as what they're public. Note I've given that. The above points, like second and third, are able to improve what is this actually? Encapsulation in Java applications. Why? Because if the property is private, no, every data we are going to send it to that property through the method only. Every data of that property we are able to get through what their method only. Data must be flow through what their methods only. Inside the method, data and coding may be combined. The combination of providing data and coding is called as what their encapsulation. Right, sir. Next one is, if you want to apply our own comparison mechanisms, while comparing two bean objects, then we have to override the object class provided. Which method is there? Equals method in the bean class. Object class provided equals method here. We have to override if you want to go with your own mechanism there, no? Your own comparison here. No? Next one is after that. If you want to generate hash code values to the bean objects as per our requirement, then it is suggestible to override object class provided what their hash code method. It's suggestible to override what their object class provided hash code method. Okay. See, I want to provide my own hash code value for each and every object. In my direction, I want to generate hash code values, not in the internal implementations point of view. So there we have to override what their user provided. That means object class provided hash code method in the bean class. Next one is, in general, in bean classes, if you want to provide a constructor, then we have to provide what constructor can know. There we have to provide either zero argument, that means zero argument constructor and public constructor. This is a point here, but not what their parameterized constructor. But in Spring framework, that is going to be violated. In Spring framework, we are able to use what their parameterized constructors also as per the requirement, not exactly zero argument constructor, not exactly public. No, parameterized constructors also here we are going to use inside the Spring framework. All right, sir. In general, why this zero argument constructor and public constructor here? In general, containers, frameworks, and servers will create objects for the bean classes. While creating objects for the bean classes, containers, servers, frameworks will search and execute zero argument constructor only, not parameterized constructor here. This is one point now. All right, sir. Now, along with the above rules and regulations, Spring Framework is using the above classes while the following conventions. That means bean classes are going to be utilized with the conventions here inside the Spring Framework. This is specific to Spring Framework. What are the conventions can know? They'll provide the total application logic inside the bean classes only, not in any other one. Of course, if it is an MVC based application, there we are going to take some other conventions there now. In general, I'm telling there. We will use parameters or constructors and bean classes as per the requirement. Next one is what there? We will use bean classes to provide application configuration details. Of course, not only XML files, no, normal Java classes also, bean classes also we are able to prepare, we are able to use to provide configuration details to the IOC container. Yes, sir. All of you get my point or not? All right, now I'm asking one question to all of you guys. Now try to answer for it. If I want to prepare any Spring application, now tell me what components here we have to prepare in our application there? What components here we are able to prepare our Spring application? Tell me what are the various steps here I have used there. Now tell me. First one is like what there? Download and install what there? Spring framework. Downloading Spring framework in the form of a zip file or in the form of jar files. That's okay. Next one is what there? After that, we have to prepare like what there? Java bean component. That's okay. Next one is what there? Prepare test application. Inside the test application, what we have to do? Inside the test application, what we have to do? Already we have seen in the program. First of all, we need to create a container or not? Any either of this container here we have to create. Maybe bean factory or maybe what there? Application context. Either of this container here we have to create. Got it or not? Okay. And after that, after creating container, while creating container, what we have to provide there? Spring configuration file here we have to provide or not? While creating container, we must provide what there? Name and location of the Spring configuration file. Yes, sir. Follow or not? Here my question is, what is the purpose of the Spring configuration file? What is the purpose of the Spring configuration file? What it is doing? What is its role in a Spring application? What is its role there? To provide all the bean configuration details to the containers in order to create bean objects, in order to supply that bean objects to the applications. Spring configuration file main purpose is what there? To include or to have bean configuration details. Here configuration details in the sense what there? ID, attribute value, and the name and location of the bean class there. So to provide these bean class details to the IOC container in order to create objects and in order to supply that objects to what their Spring application. This is a purpose. Am I right or not? Means that here we are going to have one convention with this topic. What is that convention there? Whatever the bean classes which you have used in our Spring application, every bean class must be configured in a Spring configuration file or not? Come on, sir. Understand my point here. Whatever the bean classes we are using in our Spring applications, all the bean classes must be used in this, must be configured in Spring configuration file or not? Every bean class must be provided in a Spring configuration file or not? Understand my point here now? So here my question is what? How we are able to configure a particular bean inside the Spring configuration file? How it is possible to configure a particular bean in the Spring configuration file? That's my question. Are getting my question clearly? What is the question here I'm asking there? How it is possible to configure a bean class in a Spring configuration file by using which tag? No. First of all, root tag is what there? Bean tag. Inside the bean tag, which tag? No. Bean tag. Inside the bean tag, what are the various attributes? No. ID attribute. Then what next one? Class attribute. Got it or not? All right. Now that point here I required now. The next point here, what I'm telling to you. In general, in Spring applications, every bean class must be configured in a Spring configuration file. Every bean class must be configured in a Spring configuration file in order to create bean class objects by the containers. That's the point. All right, that's okay, fine. But how it is possible to configure? Right. Before this point here, I'm telling there. Now here, I'm giving that introduction. That's okay, fine. In general, in Spring applications, every bean class must be configured in Spring configuration file. Instead of saying this point here, my actual point is what there. In Spring applications, every bean class description must be description or metadata, both are same. Description or metadata, both are same, must be provided to the IOC containers. IOC containers in order to create objects, in order to create bean objects. IOC containers in order to create bean objects. Yes, sir, got my point or not? If you are using any bean class inside the Spring application, no, then that bean class description, that bean class information must be provided to IOC containers in order to create that bean objects and in order to maintain that bean objects. That's clear? All of you clear up to this point here? Nothing is new. Up to now, what I discussed there, the same points I'm discussing again. Yes, sir. All of you are getting clarity up to now. So if you're not responding that, it means that you are not understanding the point. What's the point I'm telling there? The point is very much clear. If you use any bean class in a Spring framework, its description must be provided to the IOC container. Yes, sir. Got it or not? Right. Now understand the next point here. From this point onwards, new points now. There are 3 ways to send bean classes description or metadata to the IOC containers. How many ways there to provide metadata or description to the IOC containers? 3 ways overall. What are the 3 ways to provide these bean class description to the IOC container? First one, I'm telling there, by using an XML file, by using what there, an XML file, that is what there, Spring configuration file. Already we have seen that. Next one is by using Java based configurations, by using Java based configurations, right sir, by using XML file configuration. This is the point here. By using XML file configurations and by using Java based configurations, and the third one is by using annotations configurations. By using XML file, by using a Java program, by using annotations. In these 3 ways, we are able to provide bean configuration details to the containers, IOC container. Tell me guys, then what are the 3 ways of providing bean configuration details to the IOC container? 3 ways. What are the 3 ways now? By using XML configuration file. Second one is what there? By using Java based configurations. Third one is what there? By using annotations configurations. As we are the implementer of the Spring applications, then we have to understand all 3 approaches. We need to understand what there, all 3 approaches. Now let's see this one, XML file configurations now. Bean configurations through XML files. Bean configurations through XML file. The first one again. All right. To provide any bean class configuration to provide any bean class configuration in a Spring configuration file, then we have to use the following tags. Then we have to use what are the following tags. What exactly the tags here we have to use it? Observe carefully. Beans is a root tag or not? There itself, XSD is available inside the beans tag now. Next one is what there inside this beans tag. Here we have to provide what tag there? Bean tag. Here we have to provide or not? So many bean tags here we can provide. Now inside the bean tag, what attributes here we have to provide? First one is what there? ID attribute something. Next one is what there? Class attribute. These two here we know, right? What this ID attribute is able to take now? What ID attribute is able to take now? Identity for the bean. In order to search for the bean in IOC container, we require some identity. That ID value is provided with what there? ID attribute. What class attribute is able to take now? A fully qualified name of the respective bean class. Fully qualified name of the respective bean class. Sir, got it or not? Fine. Now let's see this one. Not only these two, no. Here we are having two more attributes. Name is equal to something. Then after this, apart from this, scope is equal to something. ID is equal to something, name is equal to something, class is equal to something, and scope is equal to something. Yes, sir, got it or not? All right, sir. Now we have to understand each and every one. Again, here we are getting one important interview question. I'll discuss with you clearly later on. First of all, noun points here we have to understand that. What are the noun points here? Here from this part here. First, understand this clearly. Not only this, so many slash bean tag. Now inside this, some other tags are also existed but not required immediately. Later on I will talk about them. We have a separate topic like dependency injection. In the dependency injection, I'm going to talk about property tags and constructor argo tags, like this. So many tags I'm going to talk. Where there in the dependency injection, not immediately. All right, sir. Now understand this clearly. Where ID attribute will take identity value for the bean in order to search bean object in IOC container. Whatever the value we provided for this ID attribute, that value, on the base of that value only, we are going to search for the respective bean object. Already we are aware about this particular topic. No need to think about it. Why? Because that ID attribute information here we provided like this. Right, sir. Leave this one. Then after that, name attribute here we are able to provide. Where name attribute will take identity of the bean object, in order to search for the bean in IOC container. Name attribute will take, where the name attribute will take the identity of the bean object in order to search for the bean in IOC container. Okay, in other words, might be here what I'm telling that depending on the situation, terminology will be changed, but we are going to understand. Observe carefully these two things, no? Observe carefully these two things, no? Any difference is available? When a difference is available, where the ID attribute will take the identity value for the bean in order to search for the bean object in IOC container, where the name attribute will take the identity of the bean object in order to search for the bean in a IOC container. Both are same or not? Don't compare word to word here. This I'm asking to meaning of these two statements. People are comparing where, the name, ID. If it's not equals method, right? Right, sir. Then both the statements meaning is same or not? Both are for the same purpose or not? ID attribute and name attribute both are for the same purpose or not? That's why here we are having one important interview question. Again, this is a question here. All right, sir. Now the question is what is the difference between ID attribute and a name attribute in a bean configuration in a Spring configuration file? What is the difference between name attribute and ID attribute in bean configurations in a Spring configuration file? Right, sir. What is the difference here now? What exactly the difference here now? First of all, understand it. I'll explain to you. Then after that, we may go for it. Understand this clearly. ID attribute value will take single identity for the bean object. ID attribute value will take only single identity for the bean attribute, bean object. But name attribute will take one or more number of identities for the bean object. Multiple identities are possible in the case of what their name attribute, but only one identity is possible in the case of what their ID attribute. Yes, all of you are getting clarity what I am telling you know. Right, so now let's say this. I'll show in the form of examples, don't worry. Point what I am telling to you. ID attribute is able to take only one identity value for the bean object. Only one identity value for the bean object. Then what next one here? Name attribute is able to take more than one identity values to the bean object. ID attribute is able to take only one attribute, only one identity value. Name attribute is able to take one or more number of identity values for the bean objects. Name attribute is able to take more than one. That means one or more number of identity values to the bean objects. But how one or more? How more than one value will be provided to the name attribute? No. How it is possible to specify more than one value? Can right. In a bean configuration, in a bean configuration, we will provide more than one attribute. Will provide more than one identity, values to the bean object. In bean configuration, will provide more than one identity values to the bean object by providing either comma or semicolon or a space as a separator. Understand it? For ID attribute, only one value we are going to provide, not more than one. But for name attribute, how many? That means more than one identity values we are able to provide or not. But how we are able to provide more than one identity value? Right, separated values are available, separations are available. What are the various separations now? Either space separation or semicolon separation, or what next one can know? Comma separation. That separation we are going to provide either of these forms. In that way, here we are able to provide like what there, that separation, that means multiple values for the name attribute. Sir, all of you are getting it or not? Right, so now let's see this one. I want to take some examples here, then by that we are able to get some clarity. Try to understand this. Now simple examples I'm telling to you, try to recognize this. After that I will show everything in programmatic way. Already we had that application. On existing example only I'm going to do this work. But first of all, understand this example one. For our clarity purpose, I'm telling to you. Now beans tag is available, slash beans. Now inside this, I'm writing like what there bean. ID is equal to, observe carefully, ID is equal to, say for example, hello, here I have taken, class is equal to, com.durgasoft.beans dot, hello, here we provided here. This is my bean configuration file. Now here, in the application, what we have to do there? Say for example, application context is already existed. Okay, now here, if you want to create that application context, what we have to do there? Application context and application context is equal to, then what we have to provide there? New class path, XML application context. After we can provide like what there? Spring config.xml. Of course, I may not write every time this one here. Just directly I want to write like what there? Application context. Now here, what I am telling there? Hello h is equal to, all right sir, abbl context dot then what method here we have to use there? Get bin, where we have to provide like what there? Hello. That's, it's okay, it's valid. Am I right or not? It's valid again, right or not? Okay, now just I want to remove this. Here I want to write like what there? Application context dot get bin of hello. Valid. Now here we are not getting any problem here. Status is what there? Valid. Right. Another example I'm telling to you. Now try to understand this. For our understanding only, I'm taking no. Hello 1 space hello 2 space hello 3. I given like this. ID is equal to hello 1 space hello 2 space hello 3. Yes sir, got it or not? Now observe carefully. Now tell me how many ID values we provided to the ID attribute, no? How many values we provide to the ID attribute, no? Think about it. 3 or 1. As per the separations that I given there, either comma or semicolon or space. Now here I've used space actually. How many values we provided to the ID attribute, no? As per the concept, and 3 values here we provided. Am I right or not? But I'm going to give some valid or invalid cases, no? Try to recognize this. First one, hello 1, that I have written here. Observe carefully. Right, sir. Now here we provided hello 2 and hello 3. Like this here we provided. Now here just I want to give something like what there? H1, H2, H3. Right, sir. Now here we need to provide like what there? H4. Application context dot get bin of like what there? What I'm telling, no? Observe carefully. H1 space hello 2 space hello 3. Like this I provided. Out of all these things, first one is invalid. Second one is also invalid. Third one is also invalid. And fourth one is valid. Even we provided like this identities, no, IOC container will treat that all 3 things as a single identity. That entire thing is taken as what their single value. One more point for the sake of your satisfaction, I'm giving one more point. Have you got the difference, no? Have you got the difference, no? No spaces are available, but here I provided spaces or not? But here I have not provided spaces, no. Still it is what there? Invalid. Invalid. So it is not possible here. Along with ID attribute, even if you provide multiple values, that everything will be treated as what there single value only, not like what there multiple values. No. One more example. Similarly, we have to understand this. Right, sir. Now observe carefully. Now inside this, just I want to provide like what there comma, comma, like this here we provide it. Now observe carefully. Hello 1 invalid, hello 2 invalid, hello 3 invalid. Hello 1 comma hello 2 comma hello 3. Now it is valid. Correct or not? Why? Because that everything what we provided will be taken as what their single ID value. Now that ID value is not only hello 1. ID value is what there hello 1 comma hello 2 comma hello 3. Correct or not? Now this is what exactly the meaning of like what there ID attribute. ID attribute content here we understood. Alright, sir. Now this is about like what there example 3. Similarly, observe carefully. Next one is example 4. Name attribute. Name attribute is equal to hello. Hello H is equal to application context dot get bean of hello. Now what is the status scan? Valid or invalid? No. Yes, of course. Name attribute will take one or more. One value is also be possible or not? Right. Next one. Now this is 5. Here I want to use like what their name. Name attribute here we have used there. Inside this name attribute here what we provided now directly hello 1 space hello 2 space hello 3 class is got something. Now here if the case more than one value we provided to the name. Now this is like what they now tell me valid, and this is like what there valid. Now this is like what there is a valid, but this is what there invalid. We should not provide as a single identity. All right, so now this also be like what there invalid, not possible to provide. Got it or not? This is one thing. Let's see this particular one here. Six example 6. Here we provided this one. Now this is what they now tell me here. Here we provide hello 1 comma hello 2 comma hello 3. Now here get bean of hello 1 valid or invalid? No, valid. Next one is what there get bean of hello 2 again it is valid. Get bean of hello 3 again it is what there valid. Alright, get bean of hello 1 comma hello 2 comma hello 3. This is what there valid or invalid? No, invalid. Why? Because all three things are not possible at a time. Multiple values here, multiple values are existed here now. Right, so now this is another thing here we can understand. Next, one more example. Right, sir. Now here we have to see like what there example 7. Now inside this, what I want to provide there, comma I provided, space I provided. This time I want to provide what there semicolon. Class attribute. Now again here, still it is what there valid, valid, valid. Last one is what there invalid. Like this. Here we are getting that part here. So now finally what we understand there. Finally, what we understand there, ID attribute is able to take what there single ID value for the bean, but name attribute is able to take what there multiple ID values for the beam. If you want to provide multiple identities for the beam now, for the beam object, then how we are able to separate these multiple values there? The separation between multiple values for the name attribute is what there, either by semicolon or by using comma or by using what there space. In these three ways, we are able to separate multiple values of the name attribute clearly. Right. The remaining what is what there? We have to talk about them practically. Then every point, whatever the points can be discussed again, then everything I'll show the difference again. Then by that we are able to get some clarity. Right. That's okay, guys. That's all for today. Then tomorrow I'll continue the remaining part. Tomorrow we'll show that practical. After that, I will move forward to like what are their scopes, scopes in Spring applications for the beans. That topic we are going to understand. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. I'll meet on tomorrow. Spring is the sir next check చేస్తాను. Hmm? Just check the record also. జస్ట్ మార్చానండి నేను ఇప్పుడు మార్చాను అండ్ 7 PM డెమో రియాక్ట్ చేసి Jayant, I don't know the courses, Jayant. Please inquire at office there at present. Okay, then actually then I'm not aware about that classes, other classes schedules. But if it is newly started, then I'll request them then to start a new batch like that. But already existed batch in the sense I'm not aware about it. Could you teach React JS? No, 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 not possible. Even I don't know that. React JS is not possible with me. Okay. Thank you guys. Thanks a lot.